This is Washington Policy Center's The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly of Education. We break down the latest in what's happening in education policy for Washington State and how to create the best future for parents and students. Welcome to this episode. My name is Donald Kimball. I'm here with our Center for Education Director, Lieve Finna. We're here to bring you the latest in education nationally and across the state. So this is the final week of the legislative session for this year. So there's a lot of action happening, and we're going to bring you the latest starting in Washington State. So Lieve, what can we say about bills that have passed in our legislative session just before the end here?
Yes, so last week, several of the bills that I testified against have unfortunately passed. That is House Bill 2331, which would allow the Superintendent of Public Instruction to cut funding to school districts that do not adopt curriculum that he wants them to use. And of course, this is all couched in the inclusive diversity curriculum, but we all know it means critical race theory, racist critical race theory teachings in the schools. So that's a bad bill. There's another one related to that, House Bill 5462, which is, again, this couched in inclusive language, but it's really about putting pornography in front of the kids. And that effort was fought valiantly by parents who oppose this law, and it failed because the Democrats in control want this material to be put in front of the children. Then there was a bill to increase property taxes in King County. That passed. I testified against that. That passed. And then there was a bill to increase operating costs for the schools. That also passed. So basically, the state legislature has doubled down on its effort to control what happens in our local school districts that do not have to be subject to the authority of the state under state law. Local school districts have broad discretionary authority to govern their own schools and to choose curriculums. So this sets up a fight between districts who are not willing to submit to this overreach from the Democrats, and we'll see what happens with that. But on the good news, last week, the state legislature, contrary to what I was thinking last week, contrary to my expectation, the state legislature decided to pass the Parental Notification Initiative, signed by over 454,000 people in the state of Washington. That's extremely important because it sends a message to the school districts across the state, to public school teachers, to public school principals, that they are no longer to hide from parents important information about what's happening to their own child in school. This covers curriculum that is being taught, materials, classroom materials that are being shown to children. It includes notification about what's happening to their own children in the school. There's a very controversial policy that is called policy. I get these numbers 3211. It's the one that the OSPI and WASDA have written up, and it's not a law, but it's their misinterpretation of existing law against discrimination and bullying in the schools. They have declared that schools should not inform parents if a child is trying to change sex or change gender or LGBT or whatever at school. And so there's two secret sets of books being now kept on children that parents are not aware of. And that is what has led to some of the fervor behind the parental notification bill, which is so correct. I mean, this sort of information should not be hidden from parents. And what I'm dismayed by are the statements by Senator Pedersen and Senator Wellman and some of the Democrats who have pushed these bad policies upon our state are saying that they're not going to follow the parental notification initiative, but they are fighting a losing battle because now into law is going to be passed. And I just heard moments ago, the Senate passed 49-0 this parental notification initiative. And that is going to send a clear message to the schools that they need to notify parents about what's going on in their children's lives, of course, because it's the only right thing to do. And so now with this law in hand, parents will be able to challenge this illegitimate administrative policy imposed on districts by OSPI and WASDA. So we'll see. There's fights ahead, but this gives now parents a real tool because it's clear from the language of the initiative that parents now have the right to be told by the public schools what's happening to their own children in the schools. Now, I was looking at this. We have what we have here is an effort over the last 5 years by the public schools by a succession of laws, starting in 2019, the comprehensive sex ed bill, and then in 2020, this illegitimate policy 3211 from OSPI. And then in 2021, Senate Bill 5044, the passage of the critical race training bill that the governor signed, and that the racist critical race training bill, which tells children that they're if they're white, they're oppressors, and if they're black, they can't, or brown, they can't make it in our society because we have a white supremacist society. Just a pack of lies. And now, parents are mad about this. All of this big. So this is what the parental notification initiative came out of, the upswelling of outrage from parents that this is happening to their children, that their children are being told that they're bad by their teachers, which is just an outrage. So eventually this is all going to crumble, and this is the start of it. And it's really significant that in a state like Washington, such a blue state, we've passed a parental notification initiative, and this is going to resound across the country. It can be done. This will give great encouragement and support to parents across the nation that are mad about what's happening in the public schools.
Yeah, it strikes me that even as the legislature is trying to pass powers for higher authority, right? You give the OSPI the ability to defund districts that want to use local choices for curriculum versus what he would prescribe. And you see other kinds of sort of centralizing of power from the legislature. They also have to recognize the fact that there is a big populist movement of parents. And that's, I think, why you're seeing, for instance, in the Senate, a 49-0 passage of this parental notification rights. And this really does set up for kind of an interesting clash down the road between parents and the more centralized control aspects of the public education. I would not be surprised if there are some districts that do try to defy the parental notification somehow by some interpretation of the language and worming their way through, keeping separate books or separate records for the kids. But what will be interesting then is that will force a fight, because this, at the very least, gives a structural backbone for parents to say, look, not only should this be sort of common sense, right? Like parents should, of course, have all of the information to their own children and students' records. But now we actually have something enshrined in law. So even if you're trying to worm your way over it, at least this gives us a fighting chance to establish those parental rights. Even if people are going to try to defy it, it's better that we have something like this. And it's very reassuring to see it pass with flying colors in the Senate, at least so far.
Well, the ultimate hypocrisy of the politicians passing this, knowing that it's such a popular idea to inform parents, they can't be seen to be on the wrong side of it. While out of the other corner of their mouth, they say we're going to undermine it through the agencies if we can. I mean, please, this is just not honest. So, this reveals the basic hostility towards parents that many of our Democratic legislatures lawmakers have. They've created this false narrative about parents, that they're somehow dangerous to children. They keep saying Washington is a safe space. Please, the state is not a safe space. State takeover of a child's life is not a safe space for a child. The most protected space is within the loving confines of a home, of parents. And for these people to say that they are going to divide parents from their children in this way is really just an outrageous
I,
attack on families.
yeah, and it's interesting because you can always point out to very unfortunate examples of parental abuse of some students or neglect. That exists, absolutely. But what you need to keep in mind is you can't compare reality of one case to a utopia of another. You can't say there are some cases of parental neglect, therefore we need to give all the control to schools, because there's also examples, I would say much more frequent examples of school neglect, of state neglect of students. And so we can't, again, compare this idealized version of one side to the reality of the other. Like you said, by and large, families and parents are the best, most loving protectors of their students, and exceptions may occur, but that is by far the vast minority. And exceptions also occur on the other side. There are some great teachers and school districts that do really care about students. There are also some that do not and neglect students just as well. So you have to make sure that you're comparing apples to apples and not apples to oranges.
Well, and then it just their attitude is, look, if there's an abusive parent, there's a whole process in law to separate a child from an abusive parent. But this their attitude assumes that every parent is an abusive parent, which is
Yep.
not true and false. And so this is why there's been such an upswelling. And this is why, by the way, 46,000 families have pulled their kids out of the public schools because they don't trust a system that tells itself to lie to parents. I mean, what would you do? I wouldn't trust a system that is actively lying to me. So, and now they're saying they're not going to enforce this law that they're that they're passing with wide flying colors. So it tells you that they don't really care about the children. Because if they really cared about the children, they really felt this was unsafe, they would vote no.
Right.
But what they really care about is holding on to their seat of power. And they know they have to come out in support of this initiative. So this is all political. It's all self-interest. And it should tell every child out there that is concerned about who's really on their side. It should reveal to every child that really, think about it. The state is not on your side. Your parents are doing the best they can. It is hard to grow up for sure, but do not believe that some state official is going to keep you safe from the world. That is just wrong.
Yeah,
Anyway,
well, and
it's
so one of the interesting things then I think is we might be previewing this sort of fight of the parental rights versus sort of centralized control. You might see this as a foreshadowing of what we are seeing nationally, for instance, in Texas. So as we've been keeping track of for the past few weeks, one of the big focus of Texas local elections there has been school choice. And so what's the update there? Because Washington
yes.
State could be moving in that direction if parents stand up and again use this new parental notification rights and other assertions as like, hey, we have a right here. This could be pushed into more school choice. So what are we seeing in Texas?
I think it's definitely true. I definitely think this is going to happen here in Washington State because as these angry parents see that the system is continuing to inflict these wrongs on parents, they're going to say, we're not going to have any part of this system. Give us school choice. So in Texas right now, tomorrow is this big primary at where the 12, I think it's 12 Republicans who were endorsed by the state teachers union in Texas are facing primary challengers who are not endorsed by the union, but who support school choice. So these union Republicans are facing, the fight of their life to stay in office. So we'll see what happens tomorrow, because of course, as we've discussed in the past, if these 12 Union Republicans are unseated tomorrow, there will be a whole new raft of Republicans who are going to vote for Governor Abbott's universal school choice bill shortly thereafter. I think the legislature is in session all year in Texas, and so it'd just be a short period of time after the primary, after the general election, whenever that is there. Maybe it's in the fall. I don't know the timing, but this primary is important and it's tomorrow. So we'll see what happens and I'll keep an eye on it and report back on this.
Excellent. All right. Well, this will wrap up the legislative session, so we'll still bring you some of the follow-up information. Of course, there will be bills signed by the governor in the coming weeks as well. So we'll make sure that you know all you need to know on Washington State's education. Thanks for joining us.